Before we begin tonight, I'd like to remember one citizen who recently passed away, and that was Harvey Beat. Harvey was a distinguished member of the bar, considered the dean of Newburyport area lawyers, a Harvard-educated, a compelling orator, a man deeply committed to social justice and to justice for everyone, regardless of their standing in life. And he has recently passed away. His wife, Norma, again, an enormous contributor to not the politics just of Newburyport, but to the political situation and human rights everywhere she spoke. And I just want to recall Harvey with respect and affection, and give him a couple of moments of silence, to which he is due. Thank you. Would you join in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll ask the clerk to call us to order.
Roll call for the meeting of May 28th. Councilor Junta is absent. Councilor Khan.
Present.
Councilor O'Brien is absent. Councilor Shan.
Present.
Councilor Tonto.
Here.
Councilor Vogel.
Present.
Councilor Z.
Present.
Councilor Devlin.
Here.
Councilor Earls.
Present.
Councilor Agaman.
Here.
Council President.
Present.
We have 9 present, 2 absent. We have a quorum.
Good. Do we have any late file items?
There are no late file items. There is an informational group of 4 pages that relate to minimum credit requirement.
So I think it's time for public comment.
I am totally taking advantage of Larry's space now.
Pretty good out.
Spread out.
All right, we have 11 people who have signed up to speak. I might remind people to limit their comments to 2 minutes in length. Please identify yourself and your street address when you approach the microphone. First up is James Brugger.
Good evening, I'm James Berger, 4 Savory Street. I'm here to talk about the trash reduction ordinance. I'm speaking as a resident. I'm a member of the planning board, and I was also on the task force for the trash, where we got to talk trash every couple times a month. Sorry, I had to get that.
Yeah, we've been working on that.
So the task force was given the task of trying to contain costs, which corresponded well with some of the goals of the team to reduce waste. The 32-gallon barrel was the best compromise of various choices that we looked at. And for me personally, it reflects what my family does. By recycling and using compost, we've really reduced our trash to a minimal amount. We don't even take it out every week. Normally, we just take it out with the recycling. And with the compost, I would have no problem keeping our trash in our garage for a month because it doesn't stink when you get rid of the wet compostable materials. So I support the ordinance. I hope you will too. I think it's fair and equitable because it treats each resident the same. And thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Laurel Hankey.
My name is Laurel Henke. I live at 8 Chase Street. I also work with Molly Attenborough in her Office of Recycling. And I just wanted to say that the first several years that I worked with Molly, she shared her small office with me. And most of you probably know there's few ways better to get to know somebody than to share a small office with them. And I remember after several months just kind of blurting out one day, Molly, I'm really surprised you didn't go into social work. You're so compassionate. And that's kind of my point, I think, is that we're a very small community where people, I don't think most of the people who work in this building feel like they work for the government. We're just people who come and do what we can do. And I feel sure that we are going to be able to, if this measure is to pass, this ordinance, or anything similar, I really think that it would just be part of the normal spirit of things for us to watch out for needs that arise that conflict, whether it's economic or practical or whatever sorts. I've worked with elderly people and children and adults with disabilities and a variety of things. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Kristen Wealth.
Hi, I'm Kristen Walsh. I live at 1 Merrimack Street, Unit 21, just right across the way. I've also been a member of the Waste Committee, and I'm also the enforcement and education person for recycling and trash in the city. And I just wanted to say that this is, I'm speaking, of course, on the waste matter. This is a matter of supply and demand. Our supply and capacity for trash is diminishing. And when supply is down, that means, or capacity is down, that means costs go up, and that's what we're dealing with. This is a problem because we have increasing population, but even worse, we have people who our per capita waste generation continues to climb. And that's where the real problem is. We have no control. This is not meant as a punitive measure in any kind of way. But because our trash keeps climbing, despite extensive and very in-depth education efforts, we need something that is a prudent way to assist with planning and going forward so that we have control of our costs and that we do not have to burden people with additional taxes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sarah Hall.
Hello, Sarah Hall, 8 Arthur Welch Drive. I'm speaking tonight in support of the Waste Stream Task Force's proposal. Coupled with responsible recycling, the 32-gallon cart will be ample for the weekly trash disposal needs of the typical Newburyport household, even a large family. This is a much-needed step in the right direction towards reducing the amount of waste we generate as a whole in our city. In addition, the standardized cart with attached lid will be easier to empty and more aesthetically pleasing. Currently on windy days, emptied trash cans and lids end up rolling around in the streets. Since we already have city-issued recycling carts, I don't expect this will be too much of an adjustment for anyone. We already pay extra for bulk items, so the surplus bags will be analogous to that, and will hopefully encourage our residents to seek out alternatives to putting larger items in the trash. Finally, with grant money to cover the cost of the new barrels, this should be a straightforward and logical decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lauren Petty.
Hi, my name is Lauren Petty. I live at 229 Water Street, and I also am a member of the Waste Task Force Committee. We recognize that it is very frustrating that we may have to alter our traditional trash pickup. The fact is, the waste management industry dynamics are changing fast. We believe that our proposal is prudent, that it will help the city alleviate unpredictable spikes in cost. We also believe the solution to be fair for all. Thanks. I hope you'll support it.
Thank you. Art Courier.
Good evening, Art Courier, 100 State Street. I have just 4 things to say. Number 1, thank you, Donna, for setting up this long view by having a task force that could address this with that respect. Number 2 is Bob Barton sent you all a letter today at 4:47. It's very well written, and in combination with the comments you've just heard, I think you will come to a conclusion that this deserves significant thought and support. Number 4, composting works.
Thank you.
Thank you, Art. Charles Nutter.
Hi, thanks for having me. My name is Charles Nutter. I am with the company Nexamp. Just saying that I'm here to answer any questions. This is in regards to the solar contract that'll come up later in the meeting, but I'm here to answer any questions, address any specific points that people may have, and that's all. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, Molly. Molly You got to work on that signature, Mom.
Yeah, I know, it's a long last name.
It is.
So Molly Ettenborough, City of Newburyport Recycling and Energy Office. So I have 3 things before you all tonight. The first is the solar alternative on-bill credit agreement that you received last month. Thanks to Councilor Eigerman and Councilor Zeid for all of your help for sponsoring and getting this agreement to the shape it's in today. I think you all will be pleased with it, and we're here to answer any questions that you have about it, but we're looking forward to getting that signed or ratified tonight. This contract is similar to the one we have in Salisbury, where we have a fixed discount on our energy supply. So it's very similar to that, but this is a 15% fixed discount, and it will be applied to the schools. And the school committee has already unanimously agreed to it. So we're looking forward to that approval tonight. Secondly, you have in front of you a transfer for solid waste to cover additional costs that go beyond what we had budgeted for. We're asking for $40,000. I don't know the exact amount because it depends on what the recycling market is and what the amount of trash that we generate over the next few months. So I'm assuming that will go into committee, and I'll be able to answer questions at that time. And then lastly, you received the Waste Reduction Committee's alternate recommendation for the 32-gallon cart and a draft ordinance. Again, I'm here to help answer any questions, and once it goes into committee, talk to you further about that. But we want people to understand that we're not taking away anything from people with this program. People are still going to be able to put out as much trash as they do now. They just will have one barrel that they get for free, and anything that overflows from that is what they will be paying for. It's not only about substantial increases we're seeing for trash and recycling, but the lack of space and options that we have in our region. We know this isn't an easy decision. We know it's not popular. We know it's really hard and it gets complicated. And we know people just want to toss things out and not even think about them again, but we can't do that anymore. We're running out of space. The costs are going up, and we all have to make these difficult changes. The rules and regs that I talked to you all about a couple of months ago for condos and apartments and such, we're working on narrowing those down, and that will be the Board of Health that ratifies those. So that's not going to be your job. Your job would be to look at the ordinance and also the fee associated with the overflow bag. So I just feel like if we can have a clear and concise trash program, we will alleviate many of the problems that we have now in the city with people coming in from out of town that are dumping their trash here, with businesses that are not really supposed to be using our trash system, not being able to use it any longer. So I'm here, again, if you have any questions about any 3 of those items. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Molly. Conrad Williman, excuse me.
Conrad Williman, 10 Barton Street, just speaking to you as a citizen. All of the practical issues that have been talked about so far are appropriate, and I think even some of the the complicating matters that Molly's brought up are due consideration, but I just want to point out that this issue is driven by the kind of inconvenient truth that we in this city and in this state and in this country and in the civilized world are going to have to deal with more and more. Because I mentioned the civilized world, the problem is the civilization is living beyond the means of the earth to absorb what we want to do. So the specific issue here is that our trash is going to cost us more unless we figure out how to cut down on the amount of trash we generate. And I was through this about a dozen years ago when I lived in Wenham. We were a couple of decades behind a lot of cities and communities in the Commonwealth that have done this for a long time. And it's time to do this. In a way, I think we would be better off if we'd done it earlier, but now's the time to get started. So I support it wholeheartedly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jeanette Isabella.
Hi, Jeanette Isabella, 1 Lime Street. So I really think you should consider this proposal. As has already been said, we have to do something with the way we deal with trash. But I think that one of the things that would help would be if we could enforce composting. It amazes me. I'm one person. I am not wasteful. And it amazes, well, I have a cat who won't eat all her food, and I have to throw that out. But it ends up costing $5 a can. She's fussy. But aside from that, I am careful, and I don't just throw away things for the sake of it, including garbage. So it amazes me how heavy that little green barrel is. And I'm always so glad that it's not going into trash. So I wish that we could impose something like this pay-as-you-throw on the compost system, because people need to do that. It would solve a lot of problems. So I suppose that's another task force. But I just want to, I know you all want more to do, so I thought I'd just throw that out. Thank you.
Thank you. Jane Snow.
Hi, Jane Snow, 9 Coffin Street. I just wanted to say thank you to all of the department heads and the counselors who've come to the budget hearings. I've learned a tremendous amount, and I appreciate their time and their effort. It's long evenings, and many of you are giving up a lot of your time, and so aren't the department heads. But I truly wish that more people would attend, because it's your opportunity to kind of really have a less formal interaction with all of our department heads and learn the pluses, the minuses, the goods, the bads, in a productive way. So I would encourage folks, there's 2 left, I think one of them is optional, but anyway, at least one, and it would be nice if we had to fight for a seat versus having as much elbow room as we do at the budget hearings. So that, and I am concerned because we have talked a lot about the 41C.5 and helping seniors, and yet you listen to the budget and there's a lot of needs, and I don't envy your job in that you have to try to appease everybody in the city, young, old, in between, empty nesters, full house, the whole thing, and I appreciate those efforts. And I'll just quickly say to Jeanette, I have that same finicky cat who adds to my disposal, but Molly gave me a great idea about composting the food, the leftover food and things, and it was amazing to me how much it lightened my barrel. And I'm fortunate enough that I do have a place where I can compost in my yard, and I know that not everybody can do that. But again, I would love to see somehow to expand that particular program, because it does carry a lot of weight to the trash, and it's obviously the weight is what rises, makes the bill rise. So again, we're very fortunate. Molly is very passionate about what she does, and she's very patient in teaching even some of the slow learners. So thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Erin LaRosa.
Hi, I'm Erin LaRosa from 8 Wildwood Drive. I have 2 agenda items I wanted to speak on behalf of. The first is the waste stream. I wanted to speak in favor of that. I hear a lot of people saying, well, you know, if you're just a couple or a single person, this won't be an issue. But if you're a family of 4 or 5, there's no way. Personally, we're a family of 5 and 1 dog, and every week we're thoughtful about how we throw things away and how we recycle and compost, but we're not perfect. And every week we just have 1 little bag in our trash can and lots of recycling, and so I think it's a great idea. I definitely, as a larger family, I think it's definitely doable as long as you're thoughtful about how you throw things away. It's not going to be a problem for a lot of families that are bigger in this town. So I'm in favor of that. And the second item is the block party that we're having in our neighborhood, and I apologize that this has been brought onto the agenda tonight. I think I misunderstood when I picked up the application earlier this month. I didn't realize it had to go through 2 city council meetings and a subcommittee meeting. And I even wrote, the woman who gave me the application said, you just need to have this in before the May 23rd meeting. So I did that. I had it in last week. But I apologize that it's on the agenda tonight. We've had this block party before. 2 years ago we had it, and it's not a problem. The whole neighborhood is invited. Everybody loves it. We're done by 8:30 or 9 at night. It's a lot of kids and a bouncy house, and everybody has a great time. So I just wanted to ask for your approval for our block party on Pheasant Run Lane. Thank you.
Thank you. That's it in terms of public comment. Thanks to everyone who offered their perspectives on the issues of the evening. I think it's time for the mayor's comment.
Thank you, President Call, members of the City Council. I wanted to thank Kevin Hunt, our Veteran Services Officer, for organizing a really meaningful event for our veterans yesterday, Memorial Day. Thank you to all the councilors who attended. There was, I think, a great turnout from elected officials, first responders, veterans, scouts, and the high school band and community members. For those of you there, you might have noticed the high school band was wearing their new uniforms. Thank you for helping that final gap that we needed for that few thousand to be able to get over that hump. Wanted to also let you know that we had our first meeting with Winter Street Architects, who has the contract, reviewed the scope and services of their work for the feasibility and conceptual design for the fire station, and we hope to have a comprehensive report by the end of the summer. We, Matt Coogan and I, also attended the Lieutenant Governor and the new Secretary of Economic Development, Secretary Keneally, for they're doing listening sessions across the Commonwealth. It's required by state law that the Governor and Lieutenant Governor put together a 4-year economic plan that's due out in December. If you go on to the website that's listed here, there are more listening sessions that will be held. If you're interested in attending, great opportunity to have conversations around housing, community development, workforce, transportation, etc. Wanted to let you know that Plum Island, the 4 new pumps for the airbag system are in. A very, very impressive system. Took a tour with the administrator from Newbury, as well as a few of their selectmen, and already we're starting to see the benefits of this new system. So thank you again for your support on upgrading that system. Was really an important step in terms of managing the airbag system out on Plum Island. I also just wanted to take a moment and just take a little detour from my update and just respond to the conversations that have been had tonight about the Waste Stream Task Force. I believe that this is really a very significant step forward in our city. Again, sorry that we didn't start this soon enough, but one thing that I think was really important, and I'm really glad the message was very clear tonight, it's about changing our behaviors and learning to be more thoughtful about how we dispose of our trash. I, like Mr. Bruger, I compost, and maybe every other week I put out trash now. Would love to see us do more recycling, but I know the cost of that is prohibitive. But I'm hoping that by moving forward with this plan, maybe it will cause people who know that they can only have 1 barrel will start doing more composting. And I think the most important thing for everyone to understand is that this is not to generate additional revenue. This is to change our behavior and to stop the extraordinary costs and unpredictability of costs that are going forward. So certainly look forward to your review and questions about the great work that this team has spent many, many, many months on. Also would like to thank you for your diligence in the budget workshops that have been had to date, receiving good feedback from the department heads in terms of the exchange and the dialogue. And I believe that you've received most of the, if not all, of the requests that you have submitted through the chair, Councilor Tontor, through Matt, and through Ethan Manning. Tonight you will begin, you will be hopefully passing the CIP per our city charter. Again, I ask you to remember that this 5-year plan that we are required to put together by charter is really aspirational, except for the year that we put forward to you to ask for funding, to begin to plan for, identify in the future what are the kinds of anticipated needs that all the department heads bring together as we evaluate each new 5-year CIP plan. We believe the requests that we have put before you for FY19 are well supported and reflect high priority issues in the city. The fire truck transfer is before you. I know that you received a comprehensive packet of information from Chief LeClaire regarding this. You know the pumper went down, the frame is shot. It's our reserve engine that we need, and we've had on the capital plan for many years, many years, a new ladder truck. So this was a surprise to me when the chief came in and presented me with the cost for 2 trucks that typically is the cost of a ladder truck. This is something our city needs, and with a 22-year-old ladder truck and a pumper that is no longer usable. I would appreciate if you would pass that measure tonight, because what I'm concerned about is that we have a short window with KME. I'm sorry, that's a typo. It's not KNM, it's KME, where they will not necessarily hold this price nor not sell off the demo. So we really do need to move on this if we're going to take advantage of this really good price. Had a very, I think, productive and good discussion with Councilor Shen, Councilor Zeid, and Councilor Khan last week, talking about IT needs in the city and wanting to be able to record more and more of our meetings. There's a review there in terms of what we've accomplished over the last 9 years in terms of technology, and that starting July 1, we will definitely figure out a way to do the ZBA and planning board meetings. But again, keep in mind we have 35 boards and commissions all sharing space and rooms, and not all of them have the capability of having video recording. But we will evaluate this summer, come back in September with a plan in terms of how we begin to move all of public meetings forward in terms of recording. So thank you for the conversation, and look forward to having more conversations with you about that. Just a reminder that the high school graduation is at 11 o'clock this Sunday. I know many of the counselors usually participate in that, but just wanted a reminder. And congratulations to all our grads. That same day on June 2nd from 3 to 6, the Red Sox trophy is coming, and this is at the Senior Community Center from 3 to 6. Be it photo ops, music, face painting, bouncy houses, food, and great tickets to the Red Sox. So if you're a fan, come buy some raffle tickets, and all of this will help to dedicate Perkins Park to Sean Perkins, Parks Commissioner, who we lost in an untimely death this past year. The home rule petition, I received word from the Senate today that the hearing on Senate Bill 2202 will be heard by the Joint Committee of Municipalities and Regional Government on June 4th at 11 a.m. If any city councilor is interested in testifying, would you please contact me ASAP so I can get your name on the list. I would appreciate if you are available that day. I would really appreciate some councilors coming into Boston to testify at the State House, and we can talk about that further. There is a CSO bill was passed by the Senate on notification and to establish the commission today. We are doing a little shorter version of what we had originally imagined for a CSO, our first summit, which is invitation only on June 7th from 10 to 12. If you are interested in attending that summit, please let me know, and I will get you on the invite list. And finally, I think you all received invitations, or was I supposed to forward those to the council? I was supposed to forward those to the council. We have time. June 9th is the annual Firemen's Memorial, Sunday, 8:15 at the Firehouse on Greenleaf Street.
Lois did forward that.
We did get that.
Lois sent that to us.
Okay, see, it was forwarded. Okay. Any questions on the update? Okay, thank you. And before I leave, I would like to invite moms who demand action to come and stand with me as they have in past years. This is an important proclamation that we do every year in the city. As you know, I've taken a fairly active stance on gun violence, and it's been very important to me as mayor to join groups in our state, regionally, locally, and across the country as we struggle with this horrible issue of gun violence. So the proclamation, whereas every day 100 Americans are killed by gun violence, and on average there are nearly 13,000 gun homicides every year, and whereas Americans are 25 times more likely to be killed with guns than people in other developed countries, and whereas the Office of the Mayor and the Police Department consider the protection of public safety their highest responsibility, and whereas Hi. Just want to make sure I was saying her name right. Pendleton, a teenager, was shot and killed just a few weeks after marching in President Obama's second inaugural parade. She would now be celebrating her 22nd birthday. And whereas to commemorate Haida and the 100 Americans whose lives are cut short and the countless survivors who are injured by daily shootings, a national coalition of organizations have designated June 7th as the 5th National Gun Violence Awareness Day. And whereas wearing orange on June 7th will help raise awareness about gun violence, this color was chosen because hunters wear orange to announce themselves when out in the woods. It is the color that symbolizes the value of human life. Now therefore, be it proclaimed that I, Donna D. Holliday, hereby declare June 7th, 2019 as National Gun Violence Awareness Day in the city of Newburyport. Be it further proclaimed that the city of Newburyport honor and remember all victims and survivors of gun violence, and that we as a country resolve to work towards a resolution which will end this violence. Given under my hand and seal this day, Donna D. Holliday, Mayor. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. Thank you for all the good work that you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. And before you leave, are there any questions from members?
I took a bunch of pictures.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to ask the clerk to walk us through the consent agenda, please.
The consent agenda this evening consists of the approval of the minutes for May 13th. There are 5 transfers, all going to Budget and Finance. Transfer 56 from free cash, $143,000 plus $11,000, all going to snow and ice expenses. Transfer 57, health insurance, $12,000, going to fire miscellaneous, $5,000. HR payroll, $4,006, and HR administration, $2,007. Transfer 58, elections and registration account, $5,000. To clerk lease copier, $1,000, clerk administration, $1,300, and ordinance recodification, $2,500. Transfer 59, solid waste revolving fund, $40,000 to solid waste, $40,000, same amount. Transfer 60, free cash, $3,250 to Brown School expenses, same amount. Again, all going to Budget and Finance. There are 2 communications, both going to public safety. Communication 155, block party on Dove Street to be held on 8/3/2019. Communication 156 is a letter with respect to traffic concerns on Ferry Road. There's 1 appointment, first reading, appointment 103, Paul Hogg, 4 Colton Drive, to Harbor Master and Special Police Officer until 5/1/2022. The following items are removed from their respective committees by a motion approved with this consent agenda. There's communication 134, transfer 53, transfer 54, transfer 55, order 103, order 109, order 110, all coming out of Budget and Finance. Following 2 items coming out automatically from Public Utilities. Order 96, and the poll hearing, 197 Low Street. And that, Mr. President, is the consent agenda this evening.
Motion to approve?
Mr. President, could you please pull appointment 103?
Excuse me, can you clarify 103?
Paul Hogg, appointment 103 is out to the regular agenda.
Motion to approve. And we had a motion to approve from Councilor Zede. Was there a second?
Second.
Councilor Khan. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That's the end of the consent agenda. What do we want to do with the mayor's update?
Motion to receive and file?
Moving to second to receive and file the mayor's update. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Communications.
Communications. The first communication is Communication 153, an emergency preamble with respect to the block party at Ting Street, Lower Ting Street, to be held on 6/14/2019. That reads as follows. That, yeah, I think we have Pheasant Run mixed up with Ting Street, that's why I hesitate. So 153 actually is Pheasant Run. It's time sensitive due to the event being close in time to this meeting. Therefore, the City Council affirms that emergency exists, waives Rule 12A, and Communication 153 may be voted upon its first introduction. That's the one that relates to
Ting Street.
Motion to approve.
What are we approving?
We're approving 153 that should relate to Ting Street. I will fix that on the next order. So this emergency preamble relates to Pheasant Run.
153 is Pheasant Run.
Okay. And we have a motion to approve and seconded the emergency preamble. Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Roll call.
Don't need one, but we can do one for sure. Roll call. This is on our emergency preamble. Councilor.
Excuse me, is that a necessity? That's not a necessity of the rule.
No, two-thirds vote is necessity, not a roll call.
It's the ruling of the chair, we have two-thirds majority. Now we can move on to the matter itself.
Let's, I'm going to, because we just voted on Pheasant Run, which is submitted by Aaron LaRosa. That's the block party application. There are sign-offs on all of it. It is to be held on 6/8/2019. I apologize, it has communication 154. I'm going to change that to 153. And I think it's straightforward otherwise.
Okay, what is the will of the council?
Can I have a point of order? Sorry.
Yes,
So
Councilor
communication 154 is Pheasant Run Lane. And so the emergency order should refer to that, 154. 153 is Ting Street.
However,
Yeah, you just did that.
I read it as, because mine reads 153 as Pheasant Run, and then I coupled Pheasant Run, which was communication 154. I made 153 so that it would run with.
Also, you will alter the emergency.
So again, point of order.
I appreciate your attempt to clarify.
So 153 block party is going to be 154 block party.
Yeah, we're going to do 154 next. So we're on 153, which is now Wallet Drive.
Pheasant Run.
It's okay.
Motion to approve.
Second. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Thank you, Mr. President. Now back to emergency preamble 154, which
Is related to Ting Street then?
is related to Ting Street because it's time sensitive due to the date of the event prior to the next council meeting.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Conflated.
The motion to approve is the emergency preamble. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The emergency preamble is approved. We need a motion on the item. The clerk's going to read the item, please.
The item is, again, a block party. It's related to 10 Ting Street. It would be held on Friday, June 14th, 2019.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No opposed. The motions both pass. Enjoy your parties.
I already gave it a thumbs up and
All right. We'll move on to appointments, the first being appointment 103 that was taken out of the consent agenda.
Yeah, motion to refer to public safety.
Second. Moved and seconded to move to public safety. Discussion. Councilor Eigenman.
Yeah, after our rules, it's mandatory for us to go to public safety.
Thank you. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Very well. Now we'll go to the rest of the appointments, and I think we're in second reading. Is that correct?
We're on second reading, appointment 100, Laurie Pierce, 15 2nd Street, Amesbury, Chief Procurement Officer. Appointment 101, Katie Nye, 8 Russell Terrace, Human Rights Commission until 5/31/2021. Appointment 102, Eileen Ryan, 350 High Street, Human Rights Commission until 6/1/2021.
Motion to approve collectively.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve these collectively. Is it appropriate to approve a public procurement officer with the appointments to the volunteer boards?
I think so, Mr.
Just within
President.
our rules? Very
I
well.
don't think there's any violation.
Discussion. Moved and seconded to approve collectively.
Roll call.
So we'll take a roll call on that matter.
Okay. Councilor Khan?
Yes.
Councilor Shan?
Yes.
Councilor Tontar?
Yes.
Councilor Vogel?
Yes.
Councilor Z?
Yes.
Councilor Devlin?
Aye.
Councilor Earls?
Yes.
Councilor Eigenman?
Yes.
Council President?
Yes. Not having been approved, we can move to orders.
Order 112 is handicap parking space, Lime Street at Water Street.
Motion to table.
Second.
Moved and seconded to table. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Very well. Next item.
Order 113 relating to the water and sewer rates FY 2020.
Motion to refer to public utility.
Second. Moved and seconded to public utilities. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's in public utilities. Ordinances.
We have one ordinance, Mr. President. It is from 2 Health and Sanitation, deleting sections 881, 882, 883, and 884, and submitting in its place 860, 61, 62, 63, 4, and 5, including regulations. And that is, and 67, 68. Co-sponsored, submitted by Councilor Connell and Councilor Khan.
Motion to refer to public safety as, and also committee of the whole. Can I do that together?
You may. Is there a second?
Second.
That was public safety and...
Yes.
And committee of the whole. Discussion. Councilor Khan.
Thank you, Council President. So I think many heard the comments today, too, from the Waste Task Force, the Waste Stream Task Force, but the proposed ordinance was put together through the Newburyport Recycling and Energy Office and was based on several months of the Waste Stream Task Force meetings since spring last year. The 2 city councilors on it were myself and Council President Connell. We also had some residents on the task force and some industry experts. So we actually spent time, and was actually formed because of the reaction to the contracts that we were looking at for trash and recycling for the city, and the enormous amount of costs that were being incurred, which is a large result of a lot of the landfills closing and incinerators that are now, there's a moratorium for additional incinerators to be even built. So we're at 100% capacity. So a lot of the trash and the hauling and actually the locations now in terms of transportation have resulted in this increase in costs. So the task force goal was to explore methods that would look at a long-term solution. So not just something as a quick fix or a Band-Aid, but long-term solutions that would also look at ways that we could do a general way of providing methods for waste diversion as well as waste reduction. So currently in Newburyport, trash and recycling is done through tax-funded. Residents pay, eligible residents will pay through a tax-funded basis, where for trash you have up to 35 barrels of trash available for disposal on a weekly basis. So the program that we're trying to look at is ways that you can actually provide incentives for diverting. And one of the things that came up is looking at what the state is doing in other cities. And the Mass DEP website had provided some data on the free throw model, which is kind of what I'm defining what we have right now. And I don't mean it's free. What I mean is free throw, meaning you have a substantial amount of weekly trash that you could dispose of, which doesn't really quite provide an incentive for trying to think of ways to divert towards recycling or composting or alternatives. So many of you were here on February 25th when there was a presentation on some of the findings from the Waste Stream Task Force, and there was a table of different options. And the options that were looked at were the whole kind of a whole spectrum. To do nothing was evaluated, to look at an annual fee, which is being done in some of the communities, to look at a full pay-as-you-throw, which is known as full pricing, per unit pricing, to also look at a hybrid approach, which is a partial per unit pricing mechanism. So the recommendation back at the end of February was to consider the hybrid approach, where every resident would get one free bag, 15-gallon bag, and anything in excess would be something that would have to be paid when you purchase a bag. So after that was 3 months ago, the Waste Stream Task Force came together and heard from residents after the presentation, heard from other fellow city councilors here, and as a result came together to think about what would be a mechanism that would work while also being mindful of the goals. There was also a grant, a state grant, that was actually awarded to the city to provide the 32-gallon barrels to every resident. So the proposal that's in the ordinance now is taking that hybrid approach. However, instead of the single bag, making it the cart, the 32-gallon cart that would be available for all residents. Anything in excess of that would then be a cost of an approved bag that you could get at a retailer in the city. So that's what we have before us, and I look forward to conversations in the Public Safety Committee. One of the things I really want to emphasize is that community engagement and talking to residents is really critical. So I encourage everybody to please reach out, let constituents, let the residents know. And I'd also like to just make a request that we keep it in committee and let it get its due diligence and not try to rush anything. Not that I'm saying we're going to rush anything, but I would love to see us have some meetings on this to really go through it so that we could have some multiple public hearings for everyone to weigh in. So thank you. I know that was overly long, but thank you.
Additional comments? All those in favor of referring this to Committee on Public Safety and Committee of the Whole, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? That's where it is.
I was laughing because I'm like, I don't know.
Thank you, Councilor.
I forgot about them.
Presentation. Committee items. Budget and Finance. I think you're first. Councilor Tantar.
Motion to, I'm going to go in the order that these appear in your packet, or you put them together in your packet. I move to adopt the CIP, which is Communication 134.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Councilor Thompson.
Yeah, we are bringing this before you without a recommendation. That was a decision the committee made because we were still in the process of going through budget workshops. And what we did this year, as we did last year, as we met with department heads, we also asked the department heads about their capital plans. And so when we met, we didn't have that full information, so we decided to wait until we did have that full information. What I will say is the charter indicates that at any time, this is a quote, after the public hearing, but before June 1st of each year, the City Council shall by resolution adopt the capital improvements program with or without amendment. and so we can amend it. It specifies, however, that if we are to amend, each amendment is to be taken separately. So what I'd like to do is, I've already moved that we adopt it, but if anyone would like to make an amendment, if you could give me the CIP number, then we can do them in an ordered fashion.
I'll second the motion.
Is that what you said?
Motion to amend page 19.
Page 19.
Ambulances. If you want to do them in order, if someone has an earlier amendment, I can withdraw.
Okay, so that is CIP number FD004.
All right, well, I would move to strike the $600,000 under fiscal year 2020 and move it to fiscal year 2022.
Second.
Can you speak on it?
Excuse me, let's see if we can get a clear process. Would you like to vote on each of these individually?
We have to by charter.
We have to,
Each
right?
individual one. We have to by charter.
So we have a motion to move that particular item on ambulance service from fiscal 20 to 22. Is that correct?
Yes.
It's been seconded. Discussion of that matter. Councilor Agnew.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Excuse me, Charlie, do you want to run this whole thing right now?
I could do that.
Yeah.
I recognize the Ward 2 councilor.
Thank you.
Or do you want to move up to the...
Nah, I can do it from here. Right?
All right.
I feel uncomfortable.
Thank you, Mr. Acting President. So on this item, we've been discussing fire-based ambulances for a while. But before I get into that, there are a couple more details about the capital improvement program that I want to make clear for the record. One is because it's adopted by a resolution, that means we're the final word. A resolution does not go to the mayor. This is the final word on the CIP for this year. And the next year, the mayor can submit another version of the CIP and in fact has a duty to do so to update it. But under the charter, section 9-3, resolutions may not be vetoed. So I think this is an important program. I know we've had differences of opinion, at least on my 6 years on the council, but to quote the executive summary from the CIP, the idea is to coordinate, to organize, to create a tool for fiscal planning. And remember that even if there's no general fund money being used or there's nothing appropriated now, this gives the green light to seek grants. And as the administration says, they're very active in seeking grants. That's the first thing they do before they go after general fund appropriations. So when something is in this plan for this fiscal year, it's really not enough to say, well, there's no appropriation yet because there may be a grant sought to acquire it. And if the city council doesn't believe that it's a priority, it shouldn't be in there. Again, from the executive summary, significant time has been spent on developing a realistic funding schedule within the confines of the city's financial resources and aligned with the city's financial policies. So again, I take that seriously. I know many people sort of think of the CIP as something to throw away, but it is posted on the website under the charter. It's meant to be a serious public document. I'm going to take it that way. So I support, in principle, fire-based ambulance service. Almost every other large community has it, small communities too. But in this fiscal year, which is the next 13 months, I don't see that we're ready to commit, even in a plan, to purchasing $600,000 worth of vehicles. We don't know where they're going to go. We have, I guess in the next 30 days, we'll approve the budget. And I don't believe the budget includes all of the staffing for those ambulances. So again, I'm not trying to say that we'll never have ambulance service, but I think a delay of 2 years would be more realistic and in the confines of financial resources. Thank you.
Further discussion?
You take it over. Actually,
Go ahead.
that's better than you
Reflex.
take it over.
You do it.
Because I would like to respond. Just,
All right. You handing it back to me, Charlie?
yeah, I'm handing it
All right,
back
let's
to you.
just do that.
Because otherwise I couldn't speak, I believe,
Sure.
but I'm not sure about that. What we heard in committee is that the administration, the city has applied for a safety grant, which would provide 75% of the salary of firefighters in the first year, and then second and third years would be 50%, and then 25% in the fourth, I believe, if we get that grant. So the administration is holding back on the ambulance purchase for two reasons. One is to see if we get the safety grant, and the second is to complete the process of determining whether or not having ambulances would produce revenue for the city, positive revenue, rather than be a cost. Both conditions are required. If we move this to fiscal year '22, that would foreclose the possibility, if we were to get the safety grant, of accepting it, for one thing, and secondly, would foreclose the possibility of having ambulance service if it were to make money. So I would urge you to vote against this because, and I'd recognize either the chief or the CAO also to ask them to speak to this. Mr. Coogan?
I just wanted to follow up on some of the information that the board counselor mentioned, that we did apply for a SAFER grant. It is
SAFER grant.
It's a SAFER grant is the abbreviation. So it would be for 8 staff members, which we feel that is what the fire chief thinks will be necessary to start this program. It would be 75% first year covered salary, 75% second year, and then 35% of the breakdown numbers. Going back to the Ward 2 councilor's comments about the importance of having this in the plan, I wholeheartedly agree. Coming from a planning background, this is a very important document for me personally, but I think for the city as a whole. Just taking a look at the last year's capital improvement plan, the ambulances were included in the last year's plan as a fiscal year 19. Here we are in fiscal year 20. But I think, you know, the counselor is right that when we have these items in the plan, and when they're sooner than later, the city is looking for grant funding for that, and that is why, one of the reasons why the city did go for a SAFER grant, because we've been lining up this process of doing our due diligence, figuring out ways to finance this, both the acquisition of the ambulances and the staffing that would go with it. I think the fire chief could probably speak to more about the space needs. I believe that's not going to be an issue. Right now, it's going to be the acquisition of the ambulances, the cost of the new staff, and as the Ward 4 councilor mentioned, the idea is going forward is that this would be paying for a program that would pay for itself through the insurance reimbursements of transporting people that need ambulance service to the hospital.
Chief, would you like to comment on the staffing levels in particular, or any element of the presentation as you've heard it so far?
Thank you, Councilor. Just to, as the councilor here has heard me say before, we are understaffed now. Obviously, we couldn't even bring on ambulances with the staff that we have, so all of these things have to come together at the same time. The reason the ambulances are in the capital improvement plan is they're there as an identifier. As the council knows, none of this is funded. Everything has to come back to the council for approval to purchase anything. So that process will certainly take place. There's been stuff that's been in the capital plan for years that we haven't purchased, such as that ladder truck. It's identified, it's there as a placeholder, just so part of that planning document is so the city council knows what the plan is to meet the needs of the city.
Thank you. Councilor Shand.
Thank you. So I don't know who to address this one to. Maybe it's to Matt. But if we were to get the SAFER grant, when does that money have to be spent? Is there a time limit there?
The SAFER grant is a grant that you put in for the federal government for your, if you're lacking manpower, staffing. So what they'll want, that they'll probably award it sometime in June, and they'll want to see that staff get hired forthwith, because that's the urgency of the grant is because of your staffing levels.
So, if I may add just one more thing, I think there was a question about the budget as well. So currently, as the budget was submitted, there's not a reflection in that extra staffing. There's a couple things that need to align. One of them is whether or not we get the SAFER grant. There's also a collective bargaining that we would need to do with the existing firefighters. It would be a change in the responsibility. And then there's the actual acquisition of the ambulances. And if all line up, and that's what we're working on right now, we would be coming back to the board with a supplemental budget proposal that would cover all those costs.
Councilor Zede and then Councilor Vogel.
So I want to rise and just in support of the amendment, and it's not an easy decision because I've been a fairly big supporter of fire-based EMS, but there's a lot of things in my head. But number one is all the things that have to fall into place actually, I think, buoy the argument that we're not ready for it this year. I mean, the SAFER grant, let's just take it one by one. If you get the SAFER grant, I would love to hear how the administration is going to come up with the 25% that's left, since we have a budget that apparently supposedly balances, and so that'd be one thing that has to come in. Second is the collective bargaining agreement shouldn't be understated. That's a big deal, especially with this big of a change in responsibility. So again, 25% of 8 people, that's ostensibly a big number. Collective bargaining agreements having to come into place, that's a big thing. Purchasing more equipment, we're in the midst of having a discussion about what to bond and so forth. And I should have prefaced my comment by saying I'm going to oppose the entire CIP, so you can shut me off if you don't want to listen to me, but this is exactly why I don't feel this is a real debate, because it's not funded. The chief just said that, and he's right. It's been one of my things I've been pushing for years, which is how do you have a real debate if nothing's funded anyways? You're basically arguing about sort of academically what the story is, and then each one of these comes in drips and drabs. One comes in, bomb this, and then you say, okay, but how does it fit in the priorities? And this is how we're supposed to have that debate, but it's not a real debate, because we're not sitting here saying, if we kick these ambulances off the list, here's what we could do instead. Or if we keep the ambulances on, here's what we forego to do so. So how do you have a debate about that? So those are my thoughts. I really would like to see fire-based EMS. I think it's the right thing to do, but it has to be done right. So where I disagree with the Ward 4 councilor and the chief is not whether it's positive revenue, but whether it's done right. Because you can bring it in and you can make money and do it wrong, and you can bring it in and lose money and do it wrong too. So this is people. You're talking about human beings and responding to somebody's house. It's not about the bottom line in this case. So those are my hesitations. You know, if this moves to 22, does it mean it can't happen? It doesn't mean that, and that's part of the problem with it, but I support the amendment, so I'll sit with that.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in opposition to the amendment. I find this document, over the years that I've been involved with city government, all the way back to early 2000s, there really hasn't been this document. And to see a planning document for expenditures is really quite a blessing. It's a fluid, dynamic document. It's planning. There's no money behind it necessarily. It's just something to work with and to move forward with. And I'm convinced over the course of the conversations that I've had with various people in this building and in this chamber that we do process very well. Things come in, there's plenty of checks and balances. If this stays here and that grant comes through, there's still checks and balances. Agreed. There's all kinds of things that have to align. But that's what the process is about, and we are involved in that process. We are the check and or the balance to whatever comes our way. I say leave it. I say let's move forward on it. It's either going to work or not. When it comes right down to pushing the button and saying, yes, I'll vote for the appropriations, I will need to be convinced. I will need to be convinced that it is the right thing to do. I will need to be convinced that the staffing numbers are there. I'll have to be convinced there's money for it. I'll have to be convinced that it's a money-making proposition. I will have to be convinced, and I'm sure all of you will have to be the same. But why move it? Let it run its course. As the chief had said also, there's plenty of projects in here that keep moving. It's dynamic. But at least it's here. At least we can look to see what's, my gosh, it's like a crystal ball.
Councilor Khan.
Yes, thank you, Council President. I guess I had a question on why fiscal year 2022 and not 2021. So was there a thought process? If I could ask my colleague here.
You may. Councilor Ackerman?
Yeah, I was going to rise and say I should have said 2021 because I wasn't aware that we were so close to getting a grant. I didn't know that. But I guess if I may continue to respond, it's not a grab bag, the CIP, of everything we want to do in 5 years. There are priorities identified. The charter requires to identify the funding sources and so on. There's detail in there. it matters whether something is identified to be done in the next 13 months versus the next 25 months. So I concede, based on what I'm hearing, maybe we're closer. Maybe we could get our act together by 2021. But it's not in the, we don't have any of these 8 new firefighters in our operating budget. We're told, well, it'll come in with a supplemental. That's not planning. That's the antithesis of planning. How can we fairly evaluate what we're going to be in for in the next fiscal year if we're saying, well, hey, we may be buying $600,000 worth of fire trucks and hiring 8 people, but it's not shown in the budget. So I really think if the CIP means anything, and I'm not going to persuade some councilors, I realize that, it should be moved to 2021. And so I'm arguing against my own amendment. I think it should be 2021, not 2022, but it certainly shouldn't be 2020. We're just not ready. It's not a responsible commitment.
So you have modified your amendment to 2021?
Well, I need a second.
Is there a second to that? Fair enough, it's 2021.
So we have to vote on that amendment.
Yeah, we're going to vote on, I'm not going to argue with the amendment.
We should vote on the amendment first.
Yep.
Discussion on the amendment, hearing none. All those in favor of accepting this amendment, moving the ambulance from 2020 to 2021, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So his amendment has been modified and accepted as an amendment. Councilor Chanto.
Yeah, could I please ask Chief Leclerc, is if we get the grant this year and we say to the federal government we don't want it, would that jeopardize the possibility of getting it in the following year?
No, because if you put in a safer grant because the urgency of staffing and then you refuse the grant, the chances of getting another one are very slim.
Very slim.
Very slim.
Thank you.
Further discussion?
I thought we just voted on it.
You voted on the amendment.
I take that to mean...
Just move the 22 to
voted on
21.
the amendment changing to 2022 to 2021.
So now we have the body of the proposal itself. Councilor?
I think you have a motion to amend on the floor, motion to amend to 2021.
I thought we just voted on that.
We have not voted
That was
on
the vote we just
whether
took,
or
no?
not to
We voted on that.
accept.
Okay, I thought we voted on changing it from 2022 to 2021.
Oh, I see.
That's what we did. We did.
So now you have the...
Agrees with me.
Yes, we do.
Councilor Devlin.
I'm not sure to direct this at, but so I'm torn because I do think this is aspirational. It changes, doesn't seem to matter. We still get things that aren't on the SIP. We brought it up before. We said, well, where was this on the SIP? Oh, it's here. It's 10 years out, but now we suddenly have it. So. But because of that, if I voted for this, I'm not saying that I agree with everything that's in here. I just agree, I guess, with the principle of the document that, hey, let's lay out what our wish list is now. So what prevents us? This is sounding a little academic to me. If it's 2021 or 2020 and we get the grant, it's going to come before us anyway. We're going to get. I mean, nothing precludes us from, correct? Nothing precludes the administration from presenting us. If we get it, no matter if it says 2021, 2020, nothing precludes the administration from coming in if we get the safest grants and saying that we want to do this 6 months from now, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Just our vote.
Yes.
Can I have clarification on the question? If we pass this amendment,
Councilor Tanto?
yeah, thank you. If we pass this amendment, this is your question, if we pass this amendment, could the administration still come in with the request for the 2 ambulances?
Correct.
So that's I have no idea. It's a resolution of the council, right?
I'd ask the clerk to offer an opinion on this matter.
My opinion is that we have on the floor a motion to amend to 2021, period.
Thank you.
But the SIP is not
Change it from
the SIP is
2022.
not controlling against the administration nor us. I mean, is that
Is your question whether it's a resolution? Councilor Eigenman's correct. It's a resolution, therefore it does not need to be signed by the mayor. That answers the question.
But that's not the question. Yeah.
What is the question?
Excuse me,
what's the power of the SIP?
I believe the question is if we pass this resolution and change the CIP, can the administration still come in 3 months from now, 2 months from now, and request a transfer for a capital expenditure, a loan order for $600,000 to buy 2 ambulances?
My answer would be yes. What would prevent that?
Right, because this is aspirational, so let's make Counselor
In response to that.
happy.
The administration would do so at its peril, knowing that the council has already expressed a preference to take it up the following year.
In point of order, we did pass the amendment.
Excuse me. Just before I get to you, one moment, please. That answer your question, Councillor?
Look, I think you're saying at our peril, at the administration's peril, because we might vote against it, but I can tell you, if I vote with Counselor Argument on this one, that does not preclude me. If the SAFER grant comes through, I'm going to vote. Again, I think I lean slightly different than voting no on this, so long as everybody understands. I am not saying that I'm for everything that's in here, nor am I for the order or the years that it's in, but I do think the document is useful. I would make Councilor Eigenman happy on this one and still vote for it, but it doesn't really matter in the end, I don't think. And
Councillor Vogel asked a point of order.
I'm sorry.
Councilor, please.
Okay, first the amendment was from 20 to 22. Then it went from 20 to 21, and we voted on that.
To change.
Okay, so the amendments have been approved, but not.
No. I think the form of the amendment's been approved.
Okay.
Amendment to the amendment.
But not- Thank you. Okay, I'm just making sure what we're voting on. Got it.
Thank you. Councillor Earls has not spoken yet.
I defer.
No?
I defer, thank you.
You defer. Councillor
Yeah, just again, here's what the charter says. These are items that are, quote, proposed to be undertaken. It doesn't bind, it doesn't say you can never change your mind. But what I'm saying is, I don't think the city should be proposing to undertake to buy 2 fire engines right now. That's it. Proposed to be undertaken. That's what all of this is about in this year.
Thank you. Further discussion? Councillor Earls.
Thank you. I perhaps was thinking about something else when there were, so I have 2 questions. You said that the money, the feds would probably release any money in June. Has the grant been written so it could be this June, and we'd procure personnel July? So, and I have one more question, so I'll keep staying if you don't mind.
Want that one first?
Sure.
Okay, Counselor, the application period is open now and closed. We have our application in. They'll decide in June what they're awarding in July.
Okay, excellent. I don't think I ever heard the answer to space. If we procure these ambulances, where do they go?
They will both be at headquarters station. That's the building we have space in. Obviously, until Station 2, the new Station 2 is built, there's no room for anything out there.
So there is space inside those garages? Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Good question. Now, Councillor Z.
Thanks. I just want to catch the public up at home that we're literally talking about a potential multi-million-dollar thing, and we're trying to ask about a few parking spaces. I mean, every year, the discussion on the floor proves my point about the CIP. So that's all I'll say for now.
Further discussion? Hearing none, I'll move us to a roll call vote on this matter.
It's a roll call on the amendment changing the date from 2020 to 2021. Councillor Khan.
No.
Councillor Shan.
No.
Councillor Tantar.
No.
Councillor Vogel.
No.
Councillor Z.
Yes.
Councillor Devlin.
Aye.
Councillor Earls.
No.
Councillor Eigenman.
Yes.
Councillor Khan.
No.
Motion fails.
Thank you.
Motion to amend item on page 21, study and design.
One moment for a second, Councillor Eigenman. Councillor Tantar, is that?
Yeah, I think it's better if you continue to recognize people, if you don't mind.
That's fine. That's what I was trying to get at. Okay.
And what I'll do is come in with the CIP number, so we're all clear on it.
Okay. that's
Page
good.
21.
We should have talked about it beforehand. My apologies for not having done so to the councillors.
FD006.
Councillor Eigenman?
It's the headquarters station, $200,000. Page 21.
Is there a second?
Second. I was waiting to hear what the amendment was. But,
Is there an amendment, or just taking this up?
Yeah, well, I was just trying to identify it. Yes, an amendment. I'd like to change it from $200,000 to $100,000.
Is there a second? Second. Second by Councilor Z. Discussion. Councilor Agaman.
Yes, well, I submitted, just so everyone knows, I submitted written questions on every single one of these items, and I got written responses back. So I don't want you to think I'm doing this in a vacuum. So on this one, though, I didn't get an answer on why a feasibility study has to be $200,000. So for example, for the Cutter Station, we did $75,000. So again, I didn't get an answer. So that's why I'm thinking it's bigger than the Cutter Station, maybe $100,000, but $200,000 just to study feasibility seemed high.
Thank you. Further discussion? Councilor Tonto.
Could I ask the chief to respond to that?
Thank you, Councilor. In regard to the question, the original request for feasibility study for Station 2 was $100,000. That got cut down to $75,000. That's what you voted on. Money was put into the capital plan to make sure we had enough money to look at what we need to do with Headquarters Station, which hasn't been touched since 1978, is still filled with asbestos floors and has many, many major problems. So as far as doing a feasibility study, which would involve a complete renovation, mitigation, and addition, we didn't know how much that would cost. Wanted to make sure that you had enough in the capital to cover that project.
Thank you. Further discussion, councilors? Hearing none, we'll vote on this amendment. All those in favor of reducing that item from $200,000 to $100,000 for the feasibility study, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Excuse me. I think we should do this on a roll call vote. My error.
That's okay. Changing 200,000 to 100,000. Councilor Khan.
No.
Councilor Shan.
No.
Councilor Tantar.
No.
Councilor Vogel.
Yes.
Councilor Zede.
Yes.
Councilor Devlin.
No.
Councilor Earls.
Yes.
Councilor Agaman.
Yes.
Council President.
No.
Motion fails.
So close.
Councilor Tantar, is the next item up there, or shall we just take
If there are any more amendments.
any other amendments from members?
Motion to amend the item on page 36, that's the Newburyport Youth Services, urgent, very high, $4,065,000.
Second.
PL 007.
Okay, discussion.
Motion to, well, I have to, you've identified the item. Motion to amend fiscal year 2022 to increase from $3,500,000 to $7 million.
So the motion is to reduce?
To increase FY 2022 from $3,500,000 to $7 million.
Second for discussion.
Seconded by Councilor Zede. Discussion. Councilor Agaman.
Yes, based on the information that we've had so far, the cost estimate that was provided is woefully low. For one thing, we were informed that it would not include a gymnasium, and particularly the absent councilors, Junta and O'Brien, were adamant that that would be an inadequate facility. So if we're going to be accurate about what this is going to cost, we really need to put in a good number.
Thank you. Further discussion? No further discussion? Hearing none, we'll take a roll call on this amendment.
It's again moving to $7 million from $3,500,000, page 36. Councilor Khan.
No.
Councilor Shan.
No.
Councilor Tantar.
Yes.
Councilor Vogel.
Yes.
Councilor Zede.
No.
Councilor Devlin.
Yes.
Councilor Earls.
Yes.
Councilor Agaman.
Yes.
Council President.
No.
Motion fails.
There's not enough people here.
Is there another item?
Wait a minute, that wasn't my count. I got it 5-4 passed.
Yeah.
Can we do it again, maybe?
5-4, needing 6.
Yeah,
That's right.
yep.
Thank you.
They need just a majority of the tier.
Corrected.
Don't take it personal.
I apologize.
You're excellent. You're excellent.
Next item, are there any other?
Yes, motion to amend the item on page 40, it's the in-street site amenities, 20,000 in fiscal year 2020.
Second.
I don't know the number.
It's
Sorry.
PK 004.
0.
Second. I'm sorry.
What was the amendment?
Zero it out from 20,000.
20,000 to nothing. For every year or just fiscal year 20?
First year.
2020. 2020 to nothing.
Okay, and it was seconded by Councilor Zede. Discussion, Councilor Agaman.
Yeah, on this one, this is a protest vote. So people may recall that the restaurant that is now shuttered there was given the opportunity to privatize a portion of a public park. They never entered into any agreement with the city for that. I believe the planners are still out there, despite all of my protests. They also illegally altered the masonry in that building. We're told by an enforcement officer to correct it. They never did. That building, or the restaurant, I believe, is now for sale. There's no sign that the city is going to enforce. We have no executive power here, so all I can do is protest that it's a dereliction of the duty to enforce the law and protect the public. And until somebody goes to that property owner and asks for reconciliation, I'm not going to throw more public money at it.
Further discussion? Hearing none, a roll call, please.
Councilor Khan.
No.
Councilor Shan.
Yes.
Councilor Tonto.
No.
Councilor Vogel.
No.
Councilor Zede.
Yes.
Councilor Devlin.
Yes.
Councilor Earls.
Yes.
Councilor Agaman.
Yes.
Council President.
Yes.
I got one.
Motion passes.
Are there further items members would like to bring forth?
Yes, page 49, Parks Headquarters, $50,000 towards 51R Water Street.
And what are you proposing?
0. Second.
Moved and seconded by Councilor Zede. Discussion, Councilor Agaman.
Yes, I fully support a headquarters for NED, for Newburyport Parks, but not in this NED building. This cannot accommodate any heavy equipment. They can't park anything there. So this is really a stopgap headquarters to get them out of Atkinson Common. But as I understand it, $50,000, think of that as tenant improvements. So public money is going to go to improve an asset that we don't own. Now, usually, if you had to imagine, if we had to just rent that property, which is not fit for habitation at present, as I understand it, you know, maybe they could get $2,000 a square foot once it's fixed. I mean, $2,000 a month once it's fixed up. They haven't succeeded to have a tenant in all these years. So to make back that money, that's 25 months. So this is not a good deal for the public. It's not in the best interest of the Parks Department. It should be zeroed out.
Further discussion? Mr. Coogan, would you approach the microphone?
Just wanted to provide a little more information. I believe the intention was never for heavy equipment to be moved to 51R. I think that strategically it makes sense for some of the parks operations to be in 51R with its location on the rail trail. So as far as the Parks Department, they feel that there's a lot of benefits to this space. There would still be a location that we're working on right now as far as the storage of large equipment. So I think I just wanted to clarify that, and I think that's all I have to say at the moment.
Thank you. Councilor Tantar.
Yeah, I'm going to speak now as the Ward 4 council, and I'm begging you to approve this money so that currently the Parks Department is operating out of the building in Atkinson Common. They need to get out of there. I get more complaints about them being located there than I get complaints on even the condition of the streets in Ward 4. And so what this would do is they could move their office operations there. There's other possibilities, including Colby Farm behind the compost area, where the equipment could be kept. And so I'd ask you to do it. This, and centrally located, Parks Department says that's a good place for them to be located on Water Street.
Councilor Vogel.
Thank you.
Councilor Devlin.
I'd like to address this question, if I may, to this administrator. I'm a little surprised that this is...
Excuse me, I think...
Here we go. Well, maybe I'm not surprised at all.
Mr. Coogan, you're up.
I'm just a little bit surprised that this is still in here. I thought that we had a conversation about this, you know, over the last couple of months, that the building and the area is not even approved yet for occupancy under the, you know, waterways and so on and so forth. And so I'm surprised it's even in here. I did express at the time that I thought $50,000 was a lot of money, but as we know, this is just a working document, and it's just a number. The number does have to come to us. We do need to approve the number before it gets spent. We'll say that over and over again a number of times tonight. So I think $50,000 is a lot, but I do think that we need to pursue this. I think it's a great idea to have it there as the park headquarters, maybe not doing the tenant improvements as such. But why is this still in here? I thought we had decided this, or I thought that you had expressed the idea that it wouldn't be in here for this year. Can you comment on that a little bit?
Sure. So I think when it was first proposed, we felt that we were a lot closer to executing a lease and doing the fit out of the building. Since then, we've learned that there is a Chapter 1 issue that needs to be addressed right now. We've got an indication that it's an amendment and not a whole brand new application. So we do feel like this is still a near-term solution for the Parks Department. I do want to mention, though, I don't think it's on, you may already know this, but I don't know if it's in the plan itself, but this would be leased to the city for $1 a year. So what we're asking for is the funding to fit out the building to accommodate the Parks Department staff, their office needs. We'd also provide, I believe, some meeting space as well for the Parks Commission as well.
Thank you.
If he's got some follow-up.
Councilor Vogel.
Just to follow up, so I'll rise in approval of this, pending the understanding, of course, again, that any expenditures come before this body. $50,000, I'll go ahead and say okay to that, though I think it's a lot of money, and we'll be curious as to exactly what the build-out plan is. And I expressed that to the administration early on when we started going through this document. So I'm going to rise in approval. If we're that close to doing it, let's get it done.
Councilor Devlin.
Well, first of all, I have to say to the Ward 2 Council, this is absolutely brilliant. The best piece of politicking I've seen since I've been on this council, because we're talking about things that don't really have any import, and we're getting to vote on them too, so this is awesome. And sort of freewheeling, which I like. First, I don't know if this alleviates the problem at Atkinson, because there are no offices as far as I know there, because it's not zoned for offices, and I walk by there almost every day, and there's a bunch of tractors and quarter sawn logs and debris and piles of wood. So if that's not moving over there, that's not going to end the complaints there. And I find it so hard to believe that that's a bigger complaint than city roads and sidewalks. But that said,
excuse me, our council rules forbid us from commenting on the
roads and sidewalks,
the arguments made by council.
It seems like it.
Colleagues.
Oh, I'm sorry. Anyway,
so I'm not questioning the motives or the methods of our colleagues.
I was certainly not questioning his motives or methods.
Thank you. Continue.
Okay. The second part is, I think it's not a good idea to rent from NED for $1 a year or a month, $1 a year. Something's about to happen at, we're going to do something at Waterfront West at some point, okay? And we want, some accommodations from them for Waterfront West, and I don't want any of this to be confused with one of the accommodations. I just think it's not a good idea to rent anything from New England Development. So I am in support of this of this motion.
Councilor Zede.
Yeah, I'm just going to put a little mustard on that. I mean, I'm very sympathetic with Atkinson, and something needs to happen, but creating a massive conflict of interest here is probably one of the dumbest ideas I think I've heard in a long time. There isn't anybody you could talk to that would think that this would be a logical thing for the council to do, let alone the concerns about the location and whether it alleviates the problem entirely or not, or the fit of 50 grand, which is real fake money, as I like to call it, is enough or not enough or too much or whatever. It's ludicrous. Thank you.
Again, I caution the councilors not to speak in pejorative terms of one another or of individuals in the administration, whoever they may be. Councilor Tanto.
I can only speak for myself. If we rent this structure for $1 a year, it will not affect my vote on Waterfront West in any way. Speaking for myself.
Councilor Agaman.
Yeah, just again, the question in the CIP is, do we propose to undertake this project in 2020? And I put to you, we should not undertake this project. First of all, it's not going to get any machinery out of Atkinson Common because they can't go here. Second, there is another place they can go, which is the Emergency Services Building, which I believe the radio equipment has been removed. Is that right? Yes. So that building is available right now. Third, there is an obvious conflict of interest. We may be entering into a contract with New England Development, a development agreement. So this kind of muddies the water. And third, maybe I wasn't clear enough. We're going to be investing $50,000 into a building we don't own. Guess who gets those improvements when we leave? NED. So it's not free. Okay, you're essentially, you're improving their building, and they, as the landlord, retain those. We're not going to be able to take the improvements with us. Thank you.
Mr. Coogan, would you like to speak?
Yeah, Councilor brought up a good point, that we are looking to do, again, more temporary solutions to get out of Atkinson Park. We are looking to put some of the machinery at the Low Street facility, but it is a temporary solution until we come up with a more permanent one. I think that right now the plan is to have the Colby Farm subdivision build a shed, and we have a concrete pad, I believe, that'll be poured, and a shed will be there for storage of units. So that would be where the heavy equipment would go. And then down on Low Street, the plan would be to have office space, some workshop space. Currently, there's one park employee that's here at City Hall, so that opened up some more room here. But there are a couple of parks employees right now with no office, no workspace other than the Atkinson Commons shed. So it's definitely a very abysmal situation for the current staff here. This is the plan that we have at the moment. As far as Plan B, I'm not quite sure what Plan B would be. I've worked in many cities where the offices are not located in publicly owned buildings. I think that there is something to be said about carrying that as an operational cost rather than having additional capital improvements. I don't necessarily see that as a conflict as well. I think that there are property owners that have offices to lease, and there are people who need to lease them, who are willing to lease them.
Thank you. Councilor Tantar.
Yeah, just for informational purposes, the park staff does use the second floor in that Atkinson shed for doing office work. And when they do that, they park their vehicles and pickup trucks there, and people take exception to that. It's a problem. They really take exception to all the equipment, but it's sort of. We've been struggling with this for a while to clear that and get that shack to just be used for Atkinson Common activities, and that's the goal. We've been working on it for a long time.
Councilor Seed.
I'd like to move the question.
I would too. So I think we've been around the block on this one, and it's time for a roll call vote. So the proposal is to zero this item.
Correct. Councilor Khan.
Yes.
Councilor Shan.
No.
Councilor Tantar.
No.
Councilor Vogel.
No.
Councilor Zede.
Yes.
Councilor Devlin.
Yes.
Councilor Earls.
Yes.
Councilor Eigenman.
Yes.
Council President.
No.
Motion fails, needing 6.
Okay. Yes, motion to amend on page 58, Parker Street, Scotland Road culvert replacement, to add under other contribution by Newbury.
Second.
Moved in second. Discussion. Councilor Agaman.
Yes, the CIP requires that the methods of financing have to be included in the CIP. I note that the entire cost, design, and construction under the plan is borne solely by the taxpayers of Newburyport, whereas the culvert is not located entirely in the city of Newburyport. I'm not specifying an amount that's going to be subject to negotiation, but there should be an indication under other that the town of Newbury has liability.
Further discussion?
Mr. President, just for clarification, so we're talking about page 58, correct? Or,
Yep,
yes.
page
And
58.
you were adding language that says?
Other, town of Newbury.
At the bottom right there.
I got you, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Coogan, would you like to respond? Speak for the administration on this proposal.
From what I understand, this piece of infrastructure is either partially or directly adjacent to the town of Newbury. Either way, they would be part of this process. And I think it makes sense to add Newbury, the town of Newbury, as another funding source. I think maybe just in how this is situated, I think if we X off the other, and then in the description, the justification, we could say something as a coordination of the town with the town of Newbury on funding or something like that, just for form.
All right. We can wordsmith this as long as we have the concept clear in our heads before we vote. Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll go to a roll call.
This is to add town of Newbury next to the word other, page 58. Councilor Khan.
Yes.
Councilor Shan.
Yes.
Councilor Tontar.
Yes.
Councilor Vogel.
Yes.
Councilor Z.
Yes.
Councilor Devlin.
Yes.
Councilor Earls.
Yes.
Councilor Agaman.
Yes.
Council President.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Wow.
Are there other?
Yes, page 59, Brownsworth Culvert Replacement Phase 2, under other, add abutting property owners.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Councilor Agaman?
The same concept. Some of this culvert goes under property controlled by private parties. They're going to have to be involved. When we did the previous Phase 1, the owner of what is now the Black Cow contributed money, and there's no reason why these owners should be exempt from that expense.
Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll take a roll call on this proposal.
This is adding the words abutting property owners next to the word other, page 59. Councilor Khan.
Yes.
Councilor Shan.
Yes.
Councilor Tontar.
Yes.
Councilor Vogel.
Yes.
Councilor Z.
Yes.
Councilor Devlin.
Yes.
Councilor Earls.
Yes.
Councilor Agaman.
Yes.
Council President.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion to amend item 66, roadway paving improvement.
Is there a second?
Well, you find the number.
HWW09.
Motion to add $1.5 million in each fiscal year.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Councilor Agaman again.
Yes. In my written statement, I'm going to stick to this, and I've discussed this with the administration. I just don't think using the Chapter 70 money, which is $520,000 a year, is ever going to get us there. And there is no other way to fix this than to reach into our own pockets. So I would suggest that we probably have to check general fund debt in order to come up with the 1.5 million. But I guess what I'm saying is, what's the alternative? Do nothing for another 5 years. So please, I hope you will support 1.5 million in addition every fiscal year and check general fund debt.
Councilor Khan.
Thank you. Oh.
So, excuse me, point of order?
Point of clarification. So we're taking 520 and we deleting that and changing it to 1.5, or is it 1.5 in addition to 520?
Plus.
In addition, thank you.
That was my understanding too. Thank you. Councilor Khan.
Thank you, Council President. Yes, I rise in support. I like this idea. I think it's definitely going to speak to what we've been trying to do, and I think it also lets the administration know, too, that there needs to be other mechanisms in place to try to get the funding needed to do this critical work. So thank you for bringing that up, and I support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? Councilor Zede.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to throw my hat in the ring as well. I think spreading it out over a number of years makes sense. We did talk to DPS in budget hearings about, you can't just dump all the cash at once because there are other bottlenecks and constraints. But as the Ward 2 councilor said, I actually think we should have $2 million a year to make it a grand total of 2.5, so it's $10 million over 4 years. But I'm not going to worry about it at this point. But the state, we can't blame the state. They're not coming to help us. The Chapter 90 money has basically been stagnant or stale for many years. It ain't changing. And, this is probably the #1 complaint. Ward 4 councilor's getting some others about some other things in his ward, but I'm sure this is a close second for Ward 4 and probably #1 for the rest of us. I was kind of a little bit hesitant about bonding for this, but realized that really, if we're not going to make any headway on bulking this priority up in the city budget, which we haven't made any efforts to do so, despite my trying, debt is probably the only other option to go to, and the only other way to get enough to make it a bulk enough size deal to attract a paving company to be interested in us. So that's my rationale.
Councilor Devlin and Councilor Tantar.
I echo the Ward 1 councilor's comments about, for the 3 years that I've been on this, we've heard that the state doesn't give us any money. That's been happening for years. Other communities, as a real estate attorney practicing in this area, other communities do this. In the standard form real estate purchase and sale agreement, talks about assessments, and one of the things you do as buyer's attorney or closing counsel is go look and call the town and city offices to see if there are any assessments there. They do it several ways. They will come into a neighborhood and say, look, we're going to do your neighborhood right now, sidewalks and pavement, and you can either pay us all now, or you can pay us a certain assessment per year, and that's what we're looking for as real estate attorneys, because you pick that up when you buy the property. There is some discussion when, in negotiation to have between a seller and a buyer, because if it's just happened, it actually increases the value of your property. So this is one of the selling points for cities and towns. They go into you and say, beautiful sidewalk, beautiful street. If you decide to sell your house in the next couple of years, you're actually going to benefit from this. If it's several years into it, and you've paid for it, there's some argument there that you can make as the buyer to say, look, I'm not getting the benefit, and you've already paid for it. So, but it does bring value, and other communities do this. They also then just say, look, we're doing a citywide assessment, and everybody has to pay. So there are several ways of doing it, and a lot of communities do it. So this is a great idea.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Tantar.
Yeah, I am going to support this. I think it does reflect the need, and we have elsewhere in the budget, we are constantly articulating what the needs are. I would like to see a couple things. I'd like to see a study of how much the total money would take to, over 5 years' time, to bring us to the point where the Chapter 90 money is sufficient for us to keep up. We heard in the budget workshop that the DPS felt they didn't give an exact number, but they didn't think that if we did a large bond order that we could attract contractors to do the work. In other words, it wasn't capacity. I'd like to see a study on that factor. Thirdly, I got to tell you that I am irked about this. The Chapter 90 money ultimately comes from gasoline tax. The fiscal reason for that is that people who drive cars ought to pay for the roads and the highways. That's how that's how it was intended. But on the federal level, because of the anti-tax movement, we have had the tax frozen at an absolute amount since 1994. And if we could pay 1994 prices to pave our roads, we could do a lot more roads. So I am irked that we might not be able to have a youth center because the federal tax is frozen in 1994 terms. I am irked that we might not be able to afford science labs because that federal gasoline tax is frozen. I'm irked that we might not be able to afford renovating the Central Fire Station because the federal income tax, the federal gas tax is fixed. I'll stop there.
Councilor Z.
Yeah, I'm compelled to respond. This is the Newburyport City Council, and this is what we can do here about something that we've needed to do for a long time. There are other factors, like electric vehicles that don't pay fuel tax because they don't use gas. So who cares? This is what we can do here, and I think, yes, there's opportunity cost. That's the whole point of the debate about the SIP, is that you're supposed to be having that balancing where you'd say, look, if we want to do more roads, we can't do this. But since it's fake money, we're not really having that discussion. So that's why we could even make the motion to amend here to make this $20 trillion a year. And perhaps we might upset some folks and they might say, no, I won't vote for that, it's too much. But that's the point, so.
Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a roll call on this matter.
Again, this is page 66. We're moving to amend by adding $1.5 million to each fiscal year, and we are also checking the general fund debt. Councilor Khan.
Yes.
Councilor Shan.
Yes.
Councilor Tantar.
Yes.
Councilor Vogel.
Yes.
Councilor Z.
Yes.
Councilor Devlin.
Yes.
Councilor Earls.
He said yes.
Yes. Councilor Eigenman.
Yes.
Councilor President.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Motion to amend page 67 sidewalk replacement. I see the number finally, HW010. Motion to change from 300,000 for the next 5 years to 800,000.
Second. Moved and seconded. Discussion. Councilor Eigenman.
Same principle, I just used the lower number. Well, we would go general fund debt again, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote.
Again, this is page 67, changing 300,000 to 800,000. Is it an addition there too, or is it?
No, that's,
It's okay, so we're deleting 300. It will now become 800,000 for each fiscal year. We're also checking general fund debt. Councilor Khan.
Yes.
Councilor Shan.
Yes.
Councilor Tantar.
Yes.
Councilor Vogel.
Yes.
Councilor Z.
Yes.
Councilor Devlin.
Yes.
Councilor Earls.
Yes.
Councilor Eigenman.
Yes.
Council President.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
motion to amend page 71, Plummer Spring Bridge Replacement, HW014, add under other, Town of West Newbury.
Second. Discussion?
Same principle, it's right on the border, and they should be paying, it's even acknowledged in the text, but it's not acknowledged in the funding sources. The taxpayers of Newburyport would be ponying up the entire 2.6, so I think it's an error.
Would the administration like to respond to that? Mr. Coogan?
Yeah, I think that's a good pickup.
Very well, thank you. I'd like, right to the point. Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call.
For clarity's sake, on page 71, we're adding in other Town of West Newbury. Any other changes? No? Councilor Khan.
Yes.
Councilor Shan.
Yes.
Councilor Tantar.
Yes.
Councilor Vogel.
Yes.
Councilor Z.
Yes.
Councilor Devlin.
Yes.
Councilor Earls.
Yes.
Councilor Eigenman.
Yes.
Council President.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Are there any others that people would like to attack tonight?
That's enough of my illusory $1 trillion.
Is there anything else in budget and finance then? Councilor?
I think we
Vote on that.
Mr. President? So there's a motion.
from the chair.
Yeah, there is a motion from the chair, and it's already been seconded to approve.
To approve. The motion to approve.
Adopt, I'm sorry, adopt the document as
Adopt
amended.
as amended, and we voted on all those amendments. So we'll take a roll call vote on this matter forthwith.
For the CIP as amended. Motion to approve is amended. Councilor Khan.
Yes.
Councilor Shan.
Yes.
Councilor Tantar.
Yes.
Councilor Vogel.
Yes.
Councilor Z.
No.
Councilor Devlin.
Yes.
Councilor Earls.
Yes.
Councilor Eigenman.
Yes.
Councilor Khan.
Yes. It is done. Now, Councilor Tantar, is anything else out of Budget and Finance tonight?
Motion to approve transfer 53, Brown School expenses.
Second. Moved and seconded. Discussion. Councilor Tantar.
Yes, we're recommending that you vote yes on this by a 3-0 vote. The source of the fund is free cash. We had some discussion in committee as to whether it should come out of the Youth Services Revolving Fund. Administration argued that at least the second and third floors of the Brown School were not used by Youth Services, and the size of the building incurred electrical and gas, well, not much gas, but oil costs that weren't just due to Youth Services. And that's why they argued the general fund was more appropriate for the transfer. They have faced higher utility and maintenance costs than anticipated. The original appropriation was $40K. With the transfer, it will be $63K. I can give you the amounts of the anticipated oil and electrical, but I won't.
Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? It's done. Anything else, Charlie?
Motion to approve transfer 54, fire overtime.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Councilor Tantar.
By a vote of 3-0, Budget and Finance Committee recommends that you approve this. Source of the funds here is free cash. Originally in the budget a year ago, $280,000 was budgeted. $100,000 is a transfer amount, which brings it to $380,000. And that may not be sufficient. Every year, there has been a trend to hire fire overtime as fire salaries and compensation go up. You need more to cover. The overtime is necessary for shift coverage. So essentially, each shift has 8 individuals. If it gets below, when one person's out, people are not called in for shift coverage, but if 2 people are out on a shift, someone is called in to make sure that it's 7. I think I got that right, Chief. So this is shift coverage, and we recommend that you approve it.
Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It's done.
Motion to approve transfer 55.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Transfer 55. Discussion. Councilor Tantar.
Once again, this is we recommend by a 3-0 vote that you approve this. The source of the funds are from the sewer inflow and infiltration rehab. They have an expected surplus, and this is the first year with the new odor technology in place, and so the amount for chemicals was estimated. The cost of chemicals also going up, so this transfer is necessary.
Thank you, Councilor. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that is passed. Is there anything else in Budget and Finance?
Yes, motion to approve Order 103 in permit.
Second. Moved and seconded by Councilor Khan, I believe. Discussion.
Yeah, I think this was amended in committee, but I don't think councilors, we don't have a packet anymore, so did we get a copy of that?
Yes.
Oh, okay, good. As amended, we changed October 1st to November 1st, 2019, and we changed visitors to in-guests. By 3-0 vote, we recommend that you approve it, and I would defer to the sponsor, the Ward 3 councilor, for further information.
Right, this was, thank you. This was put in place to accommodate the inns on Market Street, since we are now restricting parking on Market Street due to the garage. So we base this off of how Portsmouth handles their parking garage. So I recommend we approve this. Thank you.
Further discussion, Councilor Eigenmann.
Yeah, I'm going to support this, but I just wanted to note for the record, I did get an objection from a constituent saying that the garage in part was to accommodate business, and they had wanted the garage, but she was under the misapprehension that there was no fee, and there is a fee charged, so this is not free, just so everyone knows.
Very well.
Right.
Further discussion, Councilor Shand?
Right, this is a $16 a day fee, and we base that off of how Portsmouth handles their parking. We just ratioed it down to what our max daily fee would have been, and then took it down a third. So,
Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? It passes. Councilor Tantar.
Motion to approve Order 109, Survivor Allowance.
Second. Moved and seconded. Discussion. Councilor Tantar.
Yes, this actually came to us from the Retirement Board in 2011. The legislature passed legislation that changed Chapter 32, Section 12(2)D. That applies to survivors of employees who die while working and not yet retired. The state allows communities to increase from the stipend from $250 a month to $500 a month. The legislation applied directly, when it was passed by the state, to teachers statewide and also to all state employees. However, because of Proposition 2.5, its application on in the community, when the city requires, and towns, requires that both the Retirement Board approve it and that the legislative body approves it. The cost will be $10,963. And it could potentially result in higher costs in the future if there are employees who pass away while working.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? So Order 109 has been passed.
Motion to approve Order 110, Surviving Spouse.
Second. Moved and seconded. I couldn't hear that. Was that Councilor Devlin or Councilor Zede? Councilor Zede, seconded. Discussion, Councilor Tantar.
Similar circumstances, same legislation. This alters Chapter 32, Section 101. It increases from $6,000 to $12,000 a year for survivors of spouses who die while they are on disability from a cause other than the disability. Got that? There are two individuals to which this applies. It's a fixed number that will not increase, and the estimated cost to the retirement fund, by the way, in both cases, this is the cost to the retirement fund and not to the city, to the general fund, is $5,224. We recommended approval 2-0 with one abstaining because one of the councilors came.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Order 110 has been passed. Yes, Councilor Tantar.
Motion to waive Rule 7J. Rule 7J we passed last year, which mandates that we wait either 30 days or one full council meeting before passing a loan order that is more than $500,000. Well, I think there are pressing reasons. We have the opportunity to buy fire apparatus at a great rate, and we could lose that opportunity if we don't vote on this loan order tonight. So I ask that you first vote to waive Rule 7J.
Second.
Second.
Councilor Khan, discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The rule is waived.
Motion to remove Order 107, fire apparatus, from committee.
Second. And seconded by Councilor Zede. Discussion. Hearing none, I'm going to ask for a roll call on this matter.
On some motion to remove.
This is the motion
This
to
is the motion to
remove.
remove. I take that back. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? None.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Seconded. Discussion.
Yes.
Councilor Tantar.
This is a motion for a bond order for about $1.5 million that will, it's a 15-year loan at a cost of about $125,000 a year. It is to purchase both a, what's called a Quinn, a ladder truck and a pumper, and also a engine, a pumper, and we're getting two for the price of one. The chief contacted a number of sellers of and one was available because they built it sort of for promotional reasons, from what I understand. And essentially, if you recall, we had thought that the ladder alone would cost $1.4 million, and we're going to be able to get a ladder truck and a pumper for $1.5 million. And again, time is essential. They're not going to hold this for us so we need to jump on this now. The ladder will be delivered in 2 weeks, and the pumper probably in 9 months. Oh, and by the way, in case you didn't know, the engine 3, was it engine 3 or engine 5? Is no longer operational.
Further discussion, Councilor Zede.
I rise in support of this. I voted yes for it in committee, but I do want to highlight a couple of questions that I asked that were important to me and were pivotal in my supporting this loan order. Number one is, we just talked about this briefly during the CIP, but staff costs a big question, and equipment and staff and go together. And so I asked the chief if he anticipated any additional staff cost from either of these purchases, and the answer was no. No additional staff costs, nothing expected. Of course, incidentally there may be, but not that it would require extra additional personnel or hiring or anything like that. I was asking particularly about the Quint because that's different than the ladder truck we have now. Today we have a ladder truck, just a ladder. This is sort of a 2-in-1 deal, so it's a ladder plus essentially an engine or a pumper, forgive the terminology. So that was one. Number two is, the chief did indicate that he wants to keep the old truck. I'm not sure I agree, but I was told there really wouldn't be any additional maintenance cost to keep it. So we'll have both the old truck and the new truck. We were told the old truck is not worth maybe 20 grand, so it's not a big number anyways, but I was just worried about keeping it and certifying it and the things that we hear about, so that was the second one. The third one was I asked about, is it typical to have a redundancy ratio of 1-to-1? So we have one frontline engine, do we always have to have another one right behind it? And the answer was yes, because we're a 2-station system. It was important to have 4, so it's one frontline, one behind it, one frontline, one behind it, so that reserve crews that appear when the first one goes out are able to be useful and productive if there's another call. And the fourth and final one is that we were told that the loan servicing costs, the debt and principal, have been accounted for in the FY20 budget. So in other words, there's the debt line, debt grouping there, and that line accommodates the removal of some debt that's falling off and the addition of new debt, specifically including these trucks. So I just wanted to put that on the record, and we'll be supporting this. Thank you.
Councilor Vogel.
Thank you, Mr. President. If I may direct a question to the chief.
Please, I was going to ask him to come up. So we come to the microphone, Chief. Thank you.
Through the budget hearings, I had every intention of asking this question as we've had this discussion. I've never bought a fire truck before. Does it come with a 30-month warranty, or how do they come with warranties?
Actually, the warranties are vary depending on the section of the truck. Obviously, the frame has like a 2-year warranty. Paint and finish has a 10-year warranty. There's a 5-year pump warranty. So there's, depending on component, the warranties vary. But all the dealers are pretty much industry standard across the board.
Thank you.
Further discussion, as long as the chief is here. Chief, are there any comments you'd like to make about these purchases? Because this is your department. These are important items.
Well, just so everybody knows how it happened, our trucks go out for annual service and pump maintenance every year. They go to the service center it coordinates with their manufacturer. They check them out and give us a report and fix what's damaged. This one went down for its annual service, and they came back with, they said the frame's no good, don't use this truck. Obviously, the cost of fixing the truck would be far exceed what the truck is worth as far as the engine goes. Where we don't keep ours more than 20 years, and the way they're going, the activity that we have and the condition of the roads, they're not lasting more than 15. So we wouldn't keep this truck more than 3 years, even if we did fix it. So it's financially responsible to just order another one. We came in for an emergency purchase of an engine to keep up our system. I went and talked to dealers about what do you have for demo prices on engines that are built, and then they gave me those, and I said, just curious, what do you have for ladders that are built, and what's the deal if we buy both at the same time? Obviously, you get a discount because they're demonstrator models they build for shows and they have on hand at dealerships, and you get a discount for buying two at the same time. That's why we're able to get this price. And all of the dealers for both pieces were all in the same, there's $200,000 difference between all of them. So just a couple of clarification points, just to make sure my words aren't taken out of context or the meaning is lost. Obviously, we talked earlier about the SAFER grant. Our department is understaffed. Most of the time, the ladder truck has one person on it, and that will continue. Sure, there won't be any other costs associated with this purchase, but we are still understaffed whether we have a Quint or a ladder truck. I don't ever want anybody to think that I'm blessing our staffing now. That's certainly not the case. And when Councilor Z talked about the old truck, it's the ladder truck that we're trying to replace. It's worth about $20,000 on the trade. There is no market value for it because it does not have a pump on it. We will keep that in reserve status, just like our engines, until there's a major expense that requires us to retire that truck. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call matter on this.
Just for the record, Mr. President, this is a loan order, $1,530,000 appropriated to pay costs of purchasing, equipping a new pumper truck and new aerial ladder truck for use by the fire department, including all payment, cost incidental related thereto, et cetera, submitted by Councilor Tantar. Moved by Councilor Tantar, seconded by Councilor Khan. Councilor Khan.
Yes.
Councilor Shan.
Yes.
Councilor Tantar.
Yes.
Councilor Vogel.
Yes.
Councilor Z.
Yes.
Councilor Devlin.
Yep.
Councilor Earls.
Yes.
Councilor Reichman.
Yes.
Councilor President.
Yes.
Congratulations, Chief.
Budget and Finance is done, Mr. President.
Education. General government. Nothing tonight. License and permits.
Nothing reported.
Thank you. Neighborhood and city services.
Nothing tonight, Mr. President.
Planning and development.
Motion to remove Order 87, preservation restriction, 2830 Pleasant Street.
Second. Seconded. Are there any recusals on this item? I thought not. Okay. Councilor Eigenman.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second. Discussion, Councilor Eigenman.
So this actually came in 3 months ago, but we held it because we couldn't get a response from the city solicitor, but we finally did. It's hearsay, but my understanding from Planning Director Andy Port is that KP Law did approve as to form, so now we're ready to approve it. There was one question that when I brought it up before from the councilor from Ward 4, which was why was the weather vane excluded? And the answer is that it's not the original weather vane. That's in a museum now. It's a replica. I will point out, given recent sad events with one other church, the Central Congregational, that this one is right down the fairway. It follows the procedures that we've always followed. The entire exterior facade, all four sides, everything is protected. So I would expect that when it goes to the Mass Historic Commission, unlike the Central Congregational restriction written by their lawyer, this one is likely to be approved because it matches our policy. And to refresh the recollection of why we're doing this, again, this is a church, a private church, but we gave them $200,000 of taxpayer money. So especially because of the entanglement possibilities of church and state, we need to get something for that for the public, and that is what this is. This is the consideration for that grant of public funds.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Mr. President, may I suggest, because it's a land restriction, that we do a roll call?
Yes.
Councilor Khan?
Yes.
Councilor Shan?
Yes.
Councilor Tantar?
Yes.
Councilor Vogel? Yes. Councilor Z?
Yes.
Councilor Devlin?
Yes.
Councilor Earls?
Yes.
Councilor Eigenman?
Yes.
Councilor Connell?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm glad we clarified that.
From Planning and Development, Mr. President. Good to hear.
Thank you. Public safety.
Motion to approve Communication 130.
Second. Moved and seconded. Discussion.
Yes. They met and discussed twice as an event that was done last year. It was the Cultural Survival Bazaar. It's indigenous wares. They've expanded a bit this year. They worked with the mayor's office and the Parks Department, and there's maybe about 10 additional tents and a stage for live music down in the Bullnose. The additional tents are spread out between the Bullnose and some more on In Street, but the Tracy Square had additional tents. We met with them and talked to them, and it was really well received. I didn't receive any complaints last year, and in fact, I got a number of positive, praises and input. So as I explained to them, it's certainly worth. We won't say no. It came out 2-0. We won't say no if it went off well before, and if you want to try to expand it a little bit. But if we get complaints, it might be a different story next year. So.
Very well. Further discussion?
Yes, Mr. President.
Councilor Z.
Just motion to amend the approval subject to a insurance binder, unless there's one and I missed it, but I don't see it in the packet.
And CD.
There's just not one included, so.
Is that a friendly amendment to the sponsor?
Sure, there was one, I think, in the original filing, so I don't know.
I believe there was.
Into here.
Sorry.
Kidding me, I check it every time now just because of my colleague, who I'm not disparaging.
Yeah, in the original.
Are you withdrawing the amendment based on the information you just received, Councilor?
No, it's still conditioned on, and if there one exists, it's no problem. It wasn't in the packet, I don't know, I mean, look, I'm
Still
just.
acceptable amendment. Further discussion? Hearing none. I see that the clerk has a point of
May I
order.
just ask the chairman, does this include, I spoke with Lois Honiger today about this, and I don't know if she had a chance to talk to you, but I'm wondering out loud whether this includes Byron's Court, and does it include or exclude Tracy Place?
This one includes Tracy Plate and Byron's Court.
Thank you. Thank you.
And that's actually in the packet.
That is in the packet, yeah.
And the second one?
Sure.
Further discussion?
Just for clarification purposes, so this is a motion to approve with the amendment that it includes
Correct.
insurance.
Yep.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Very well. Anything else in committee?
Yes, motion to approve communication 136 Yankee Homecoming.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion, Councilor
Met with Jason LaCroix twice, actually, and this is conditioned, our 2-0 recommendation was conditioned upon them also getting any Parks Department approvals that they may need for, particularly for Old Fashioned Sunday, which was a concern of the Parks Department and the Ward 3 counselor, just because some animals that they brought in the last time did some damage and they want to make sure they control it. Mr. LaCroix said absolutely, and he was in discussions with the Parks Department. He was going to one of the meetings, and then they got asked to come back to the next meeting. I don't think that's happened yet, the next meeting, but he's going to it. The only new thing that they're contemplating, which is bringing back a server, or waiter, waitress race. That would be on Liberty Liberty Street. They would come into us with the proposal like they do with, some of the other events like the bed race. But they would come into us with that. They were working out the details that had been asked. They had been asked and got a lot of input to bring that back. And it seemed, when he explained it to us, harmless enough, but he would bring in additional application for that.
Thank you, Councilor. Additional discussion. Questions, Councilor Zede?
So I just want to ask a question. So are we approving the entire list of Yankee Homecoming events that's on the final page of the application? Save for that one? Is that what we're doing? Is that right? Or are they, because they are coming in for some individually, and then this one has got a big list in it. So it's kind of like the
We are generally approving overall Yankee Homecoming, and any one of those that has had separate applications in the past, they will be coming in for. Basically, things where there's road closures.
Okay.
This looks like it's
All right, further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? And is there something else, Councilor?
Yes, motion to approve Communication 138 Lions Club Yankee Homecoming Road Race.
Second.
Discussion, Councilor Tevlin.
Yes, someone from the Lions Club, I believe it was Bob Lewicki, maybe? What is it? Kalamicki came in and met with us, same gentleman I saw last year, and he's been in here before. This is their 20th plus year doing it. They're running it exactly the same. It's one of the most publicized one. They do run ads in the paper. We ran through the same things that we asked them to do and notify abutters, and pretty much everybody knows this is coming and has accepted it, but they've agreed to do the same thing. And it's being run exactly the same way. 2-0.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's done.
Motion to approve Communication 148, the bed race.
Second.
Second by Councilor Khan. Discussion, Councilor Devlin.
Same thing, gentleman from the Lions Club. I don't have my notes with me, so I can't remember who it was, but actually he's on the application. He came in and being run identical to how it was the last 30 plus years.
Well, further discussion? Do we have any members who would like to volunteer to put together a city council bed for the race?
I would do that. Who are we pushing?
Mary. Sounds okay to me.
I would do it.
Well, we'll talk about that for the good of the order. But back to the matter at hand. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Communication 152, Struts for Strays.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Councilor Khan. Discussion, Councilor Devlin.
2-0 just because of the name, and they did it last year, and it's one of these ones that starts outside of Newburyport and goes back to outside of Newburyport. It's out of the Spencer Pierce little farm, and they basically just walk down the sidewalk on High Street and then turn around and around State Street and come back. It's on the map, and it didn't have a complaint last year.
Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? It's done. I believe that's it, Councilor.
Hold on just for a second. Make sure I have everything in.
Okay.
I don't see 137.
Sorry, it was included in the packet, but it's not coming out, so never mind.
Is it time sensitive? Okay, good. That's it. That's it.
Good.
Public utilities.
Yes, Mr. President. Just as a start, the two items we have were already removed from committee for the consent agenda. I'd like to make a motion to approve Order 96, which is the solar alternative on-bill credits.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Councilor Shannon.
Sorry.
Discussion.
I'm going to recuse myself.
Thank you, Councilor.
So bear with me, I've got to, just to want to set the stage for you and give you hopefully what amounts to a frequently asked questions to make this as fast as possible. So what is this thing first? So this is a learning experience for me in the last 2 months, and so what you have companies out there like this one that build solar farms around the state. Those solar farms produce electricity. That electricity is provided to the grid. In a rational world, you might expect that the grid operator would pay them for the electricity they generate. That isn't how it works. Rather, what they do is they require the solar operator to identify a customer to whom those credits will be applied to. The electricity essentially will be applied to, and they sell those credits to that group or to that individual or to that municipality, whatever the case might be. And so actually there's no exchange of money between the grid operator, and in Massachusetts primarily National Grid, and the solar operator. And so these credits can be sold at a discount, and that discount is really why we're doing this. So somebody did ask in committee, why would we even look at this? It is an opportunity for the city to purchase electricity at a discount, so the shortest way to say it. And so these companies, obviously, in order to fund their projects, need to identify somebody to sell the credits to, and municipalities are attractive because they're stable and they're around forever, hopefully, and they consume electricity in varying amounts. And so the city has done, I think Molly mentioned this briefly, but the city has executed these types, to be specific, types of agreements in the past. They have proven to be valuable and worth it. So the city did an RFP soliciting opportunities to purchase these credits, and 3 companies responded. 2 came in at a 15% discount, 1 came in at a 10% discount. Obviously, more discount is better, and so that's how we got to the point where we got into an agreement. So about a month and a half ago or so, an agreement came in from Nexamp, which is the company, and then Mr. Nutter did introduce himself. Nexamp, just to give you a brief history about them, from what I've learned, is they've been in business for about over 10 years or so. They're one of the oldest/largest developer. They're stable. They've been growing, and they have a tendency, although not a guarantee, to build projects and then hold them as opposed to buy and flip. So they seem like an attractive company with which to do business. So from a very high level, this agreement, all these pages basically say we get to buy electricity at a 15% discount. It's the kind of the overall thing. I was wondering anyways in committee where the 15% can come from, and the answer is part of it obviously is a margin question from the provider, but also every time anybody gets an electricity bill in the state, there's some solar fees, if you will, or assessed on the bill, and so that also goes to the state, and then the state funds these SRECs, I guess they call them, and that helps fund it, and if I'm making mistakes, hopefully I'll be forgiven. So the agreement came in. A lot of time has gone into it by Molly herself, the Energy Advisory Committee, Don Walters, who's sitting here, put a lot of time in, myself, the Ward 2 counselor, and my colleague on Public Utilities, the Ward 3 counselor, and all of that was done in conjunction with KP Law. So KP has been through this several times, both responding to tons of markups that were made by Don, myself, and other interested parties, and so on and so forth. So turning to the agreement itself, it actually has come a decent way since you first got it. I don't know if anybody sat down and read every line to compare what's the same and what's different, but basically, here are the most important salient points and why you should support this. Number one is we've clearly identified the value of the credits. So the credits, it's a formulaic thing because there's electricity created and then there's cost, and then you take a percentage. So that's going to be done using a 6-month sort of look back at state tariffs. So there's really no opportunity on either end for anybody to change the value of those. Number two is we've covered in depth, one of the oftentimes most sticky parts of a contract, which is termination. So the first one is if the projects are not completed, these projects are getting to go, they're not done yet. That's covered by 2.2E. The second one was if the project is finished, and this is a 20-year contract, but let's say after 10 years there's a reduction in production for some reason, we wanted to see that we would be made whole or partially made whole, and that's covered by 7.4. Indemnification is covered by 7.5, 8.3, and 9.2. Another usual comment we have here is about liability, so we've covered that. Last three here, change of ownership. This is, while the company seems to have a tendency to hold, we wanted to be assured that if there was a change in ownership, because these seem to get traded in some places like commodities, that we would continue to receive our credits. That's covered by 10.1. Invoicing 6.1, as you know, because this is a triangle, there are 3 parties. There's us, Nexamp, and there's the electricity provider, National Grid. We wanted to be assured that, if we had a dispute or a problem with one party saying, well, we gave you this many credits, and we say, no, we didn't get that many credits, that we had a way through that. That's 6.1. And then finally, 11.1 covers disputes, which follow a fairly straightforward path, try and work it out, mediation, litigation, typical common there. So the last thing I need to tell you about is the little package of information you received so that we can take a vote on this. So this agreement here, which is what was in your packet, has, despite our best efforts, we really did try, has one very, my opinion, minor amendment, and that's here. It's page 19. So I think out of 30 pages or so, if we had to strike a couple words about weather, extraordinary or unforeseeable, and the word events. So that's a floor amendment that I'm proposing to you. We've made every effort not to have to do this, but we didn't end up with one. So I want to tell you that. And then the last thing is that we are actually going to be executing 3 contracts. All of them are exactly carbon copies of this. The only thing that changes between them is at the request of Nexamp to do 1 contract per project. And so the blank lines you see in this contract are not blank. They will be filled in. You receive this, which shows you the names of the 3 projects, the contract year date, and then the estimated savings and so forth. And Each one of them also gets their own appendix, which basically shows you what the minimum production expected is. So we're taking one vote essentially to authorize the mayor to enter into these three agreements under these terms with the minor adjustment we made, and then to be filled in with the details of each of the three projects. If I missed anything or you have any questions, one last thing, just because somebody asked. Due to recent changes in state law, you can now do these projects even if you're not in the same load zone, which is a super cool name from National Grid, meaning they used to constrain you to only projects that were built closer to you. State law changed, so all three of these are in Western Mass, so we'll never see them unless you take a ride out there. They're not here, they're not around here, they're not being built in Newburyport. They are all in Western Mass, and you see the addresses of each are actually on Appendix B. Hopefully I hit everything. If I missed anything, you have any questions, I'm certainly not the expert in the room, but the experts are here, or I can try and see what we
Let me be clear. You have the proposal, you've bundled the three, they just have different names. We also have an amendment to dispose of first. So my recommendation is that you report it out of committee with that amendment so we don't have to act on the amendment separately. Is that your proposal?
We can't do that. We have to. I'll second his amendment.
Yeah.
Could you be sure to forward that amendment to the clerk so he can see what that is?
Just for the sake of the record, the amendment is page 19. It looks to me that you're striking extraordinary or unforeseeable and events, and you're leaving in weather.
So we have a motion on the floor
to amend the language of the contract.
So moved, Mr. President, yes.
Seconded. Discussion of the amendment. Hearing none, all those in favor of that amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Now we revert to the motion as proposed to bundle these three with, they're identical except for the three different locations.
Particulars of each location.
I might add, and to authorize the mayor to enter into the contract.
Yes.
Which is what you said.
Right, so that is the motion before us. I would also, before we go any further, ask Mr. Walters, Don, does the Energy Advisory Committee have an opinion on these projects? And have you been supportive? Are there things that have been presented that are inconsistent with the Energy Advisory Committee's understanding, or would you like to speak to them if you come to the microphone? You've been sitting here for a long time. You might as well.
Actually, I was at the Community Preservation Committee. I want to get something that will be in front of you in the next couple sessions. No, this contract, in my opinion, is in the best interest of the city and is market-based. And in fact, if above the market, and to the extent that it's a great deal for the city, and it's consistent with the policies and the position of the Energy Advisory Committee.
Very well. Thank you. Councilor Tantar, I believe you had some questions.
Yeah, I just have a question of the chair on Exhibit B. So this is a draft. It's just in the asterisk says, note that the minimum credit requirement shall be updated as of commercial operations to reflect the as-built facility size. So these numbers could change. Am I correct on that?
Yes.
That's one question. Secondly, this is in kilowatt hours. Right, it declines from year 1 to year 20, and I'm wondering why. But so the number could change, subject on the build out. And what does that mean?
Sure.
Yeah.
So first thing is the COD, or the commercial operation date, is referenced several times in the contract, and this shows you when that commercial date is expected. So the answer to your first question is, why can this change? The reason it can change is that basically Nexamp wants to build it and then see how much it can produce, rather than committing today to saying, okay, in year 1 it can produce 734,081 kilowatt hours exactly contractually. And so the minimum credit size will reflect. So once it's as built, let's say they get started and the facility can't be as big, or they hit ledge or something. I mean, I'm just making things up, but they hit something and so yes, they can change. We are buying 50% of the credits being produced. We can't buy any more than that. And I forgot to mention this, but with this agreement, give or take, we'll be buying about 50% of all the electricity that's used in the city. using these agreements. So this one plus the other two that are already in effect add up to about 50% of the total usage. So
By the public.
by the city of
By the
Newburyport,
city.
pardon me, yeah, it's municipal use. We'd love to buy more.
Yeah.
You don't want to buy too much because you are committing to buy the credits, so we were comfortable that, look, you've got headspace at 50%, and if these don't produce as much, we may not hit 50, but we're still getting 15% off all the electricity we can buy, and we certainly have a use for it. To your second question about the degradation of the numbers, it's my understanding this basically reflects basically the facility wearing or over time, is that basically you can't produce as much in year 20 as you can in year 1 despite maintenance and best efforts. It just, the stuff ages out and its efficiency declines over time. If I'm wrong, you can correct me, but that's why it declines over time. We talked at length, so I just want to say that I think one thing we did a good job on is getting this minimum. This wasn't in the original contract, so in basically just said, look, if we don't produce, you just don't get any credits. You're not out anything per se. So I'm happy that we got this in, and I think this was a compromise to say, yeah, we understand you have to build the thing and see what it can make, and we understand that over a 20-year period, despite best efforts on maintenance, it's going to degrade. So I hope that answers the two questions.
Further questions? Comments? Hearing none.
Just for the record, Mr. President.
Yes.
That motion, the original motion approved was seconded by?
I don't recall. I believe it was Councilor Shand?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Councilor.
So we now have on the floor approve as amended.
Approved as amended, all three contracts.
And authorize the mayor to enter into the same.
Authorize the mayor to enter into contracts in all three entities. Everyone understand what we're going to vote on? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's done.
Okay, Mr. President, Councilor, thank you. Thank you. I'd like to make a motion. Oh, do you want to get the recused counselor?
Yes.
Yeah, we might as well recover the...
So again, this has already been removed, but I'd like to make a motion to approve what is called poll hearing at 197 Low Street. Second. Motion to approve. Second, thank you.
Discussion, Councilor.
So we had the gentleman in from National Grid at our last meeting. We've been kind of in a transition with how we deal with these poll things, but we are sending them to committee now to have an opportunity to discuss them if there is any interest. There was no interest in this one. I did speak to the ward counselor. Seemed to be no issues there. It's a customer request that came out of committee 2-0 and would welcome your approval. Thank you.
Oh, well. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is passed. Any other items?
No, sir.
Rules Committee? Nothing?
Nothing to report.
Good of the order. Councilor Z.
I just wanted to say one brief thing. I couldn't say it because I tabled it, but my next initiative, if you will have it, is to try and think longer and harder about what we're sending to committee and if things need to be sent to committee, and whether they should just sit in a holding tank on the council floor and be dealt with at the next meeting. My example is a handicap space. It's my ward. It's my neighbors. I have to deal with it. I know some people get reticent about these sort of things, but I'm going to keep driving on this idea that if we want to have good people on the council, and I think we do, one of the most important ways to do that is to reduce the amount of time that has to be spent. And there are certain things like a gift for band uniforms that I don't think warrants committee time. So I just wanted you to understand why. If you want to talk to me about it, or if you want to vote no on my thing next time because I tabled it, that's the peril I took, but I wanted to explain. This is my next initiative, and I wanted to talk about it and share it with you, just so that we can spend the time that we're doing really looking at the things that matter and not doing things that become more formulaic or mechanical, if you will. So.
Like the CIP.
Good of the order. Anyone else? Councilor Tantar.
I would like to remind everyone that the last budget workshop is this Thursday at 6:30 in the chambers. And that's your last chance. It's been pretty exciting so far.
Councilor Devlin.
I've actually been meaning to do this and keep on forgetting about it, so it's now probably a month and a half old, but I've also forgotten the names of the participants. Officer Pure was one of them, but, Peru, excuse me, was one of them. But it just says something about our police department. My son was down playing basketball with some other kids at Cashman, and suddenly on Facebook, my wife's looking, and she's like, yeah, he's playing 3 police officers in uniform. And it's a program, they're encouraged to go out there and play with the kids at Cashman. A good friend of my wife and I is a lieutenant down in the Brookline Police. She said the biggest problem for her, she's a community relations person, is getting the kids to feel comfortable in talking to us. My son was so, and it's probably good that I forgot their names other than Officer Peru, because they got beat by a bunch of 12 and 13-year-olds. But my son felt so comfortable, he made the best joke. He said, I can't believe I'm getting all these steals with all these cops here. So, but it's something to think about when we talk about, you know, we want the police to pull people over more. We have a very special police force here. They don't wear BTUs. They don't wear the kind of like paramilitary gear. They are definitely a civilian police force. They come across as that, you know, when we say, boy, we want them to enforce the speeding laws, that's until they start enforcing, you know, 2 miles per hour over the speed limit, and your son or daughter gets it and adds points to your insurance. So just we should be appreciative of what's been built here, and I think the marshal and his officers and management staff have done a terrific job of creating that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Good story.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. We're done.